Our next guest in, he is a global health epidemiologist and associate prof at the Interdisciplinary School of Health Sciences at the University of Ottawa. Our house epidemiologist, good afternoon, Raywat Deonandan.
Good afternoon.
Some pretty significant numbers once again today, and I guess we're at a loss for words. Our health officials are saying we may have to step up enforcement. Businesses are finding loopholes to stay open, and people are still shopping. I don't know what more it takes, but how disturbing is the test positivity rate to you of over 13% and the vast number of deaths in just a few days?
It's those are the triggers for closures. I mean, the CDC has recommended indicator cutoffs for when we need to take things really quite seriously, and the test positivity rate of 13% is well above that. And the death rates are climbing. Now, it comes down to as well, what is the capacity of the system to absorb this amount of stress? And it doesn't strike me that Manitoba has a lot of capacity left. Remember, it's easy to build hospitals and to build new desks and beds and so forth, but the human resources capacity is finite. You can't get enough healthcare workers in to cover that amount of surge. So I'm quite concerned.
The Moderna announcement today, we can't always be negative. We heard from Pfizer, now hearing from Moderna. It doesn't relieve the pressure today, tomorrow, or the next few weeks, but is this the light at the end of the tunnel that we need to get through this and to follow those rules?
Yes, it is the light. It's a very, very bright light at the end of a very long and dark tunnel, absolutely. But the tunnel is long, and we have to find a way to traverse that tunnel safely. And my concern is that now that we've seen the end, we will throw caution to the wind and go back to living life normally, with the assumption that the vaccine will save us. But it's going to take time. It's going to take months to deploy the vaccine and to get herd immunity. So we can't stop and celebrate yet, even though this is time for optimism, absolutely.
It's time for optimism. How long does it take? You said months. Take us through that system, if you would, Raywat.
Well, we have two vaccines showing extraordinary effectiveness. They're going to apply for emergency use authorization in the USA very soon, which probably means they can use it in a limited capacity in the US by the end of this year. To get it in Canada, we do have deals with both of those companies, and they can probably make combined 70 million doses by the end of the year. We're going to need a lot more than that, of course, because each person needs 2 doses. So I suspect by the end of Q1 of 2021, we will start getting doses. I suspect that our healthcare workers and our most vulnerable will start getting inoculant by the middle of second quarter. And we will start seeing some immunogenic responses by next summer, which means we should be in a position by this time next year not to be afraid of this disease. But we'll still be wearing masks.
I tell people that we're about halfway through this, and that would be on that same trajectory as far as by this time next year we'll be wearing masks, but we won't be as afraid of this. Everything goes well. What could go wrong, though, in this process?
What could go wrong is that the safety data is not as compelling as we think it is, right? And also, what could go wrong is that we can't distribute it effectively. That's going to be the big challenge in this coming year, is how to distribute it rapidly and equitably. And also, there's going to be some bad side effects. With this kind of scale of inoculation, someone's going to have a bad reaction, and we can't let that cloud our impression of the science.
I recently saw a graphic that said Canada was at the top of nations when it comes to being prepared for a vaccine. I'm assuming that means signing on to those deals and being able to produce it. Have you seen that document? Does that square with what you're seeing around the world?
Yeah, I think we've had a big rush in the last few months to get as many deals in place as we can, because we started out kind of slowly. We had a deal with CanSino to make a Chinese-Canadian vaccine, which did not pan out. Other things that we've done well is we've pre-purchased 35 million syringes and cotton swabs. Seriously, this kind of thinking needs to be done. Now, the Pfizer vaccine has to be stored at a very low temperature, which means you'd have to buy new refrigeration units and cargo planes and equip the trucks and things like that. The Moderna one can be stored in a more traditional refrigeration unit, so that's a little more easier to do. So the things we can do as we wait for the vaccine to invest in the infrastructure to distribute it.
you have been watching this on a global scale and across Canada, and here in Manitoba, we're sort of insular, and it really appears with the big anti-mask rally on the weekend and seeing those packed stores, it feels like we're the worst of the worst. Is that the case? We're certainly seeing large numbers across the country and around the world. Is this just how this virus works?
Yeah, we're not the worst of the worst. I mean, pretty bad. We're not the USA, we're not parts of South America, Mexico, Brazil, India, Italy, So it could get a lot worse, and it might get a lot worse, which is why we have to be careful right now. I want to remind people that it's always in our power to slow transmission, regardless of what the government does or doesn't do. We can always voluntarily limit our daily exposures, and that's the best way to slow transmission. If we slow transmission, we have a good life until a vaccine rescues us.
Yeah, as we heard from our top doctor, one person with 85 close contacts diagnosed on the weekend. Raywat Deonandan, we always appreciate you checking in with us and giving us your insight. Thanks so much for your time. He's